If you're looking for a new ring design that really stacks up, this next project's for you. So today we're going to be making no solder stack rings using a little bead as a center. It kind of looks like a little bezel set bead at the top of these rings, and they're very dainty and delicate, so they stack beautifully. I like to wear them with all different colors all together, either in a line like this, or sometimes I offset them so that they kind of nestle, which is kind of nice. These are really fun and super easy to make. You just make one at a time, and as you make more, you can stack them up more. So let's go through all the tools and supplies we need so we can get started. First of all, you're going to need a couple different bail shaping pliers. This one has a 3mm bail shaper. I'm going to hold it up just like this. That's the size that you need to make the little, I guess I'm going to call it like the little bezel part for the ring bead, and you'll need that one, and you'll also need a larger one. This is called a wrap and tap plier, one of my favorite tools, and it just makes it really easy for you to make the ring round before you put it onto the ring mandrel. Then you're going to need a chain nose plier, and that's just going to be for squishing things down, getting rid of little ends, and forming and shaping your ring, and a flush cutter for cutting your metal, and a ring mandrel for sizing your ring, and a chasing hammer and bench block for forming it. As far as supplies are concerned, we're going to be using copper wire today. I always like to use copper wire when I can't use sterling silver. I've also made these in brass, which you can see right there. This is 16 gauge copper wire, and this is the 26 gauge copper wire that we're going to use to wrap the bead onto the bezel part of the ring. And then you will need some 3 to 4mm round beads. Anything you want. I've got rubies here, I've got turquoise, and I think today we're going to use a little apatite because I'm hungry. I'm just kidding. So in order to make these, you're going to need some 16 gauge wire. I have made them with 18 before, but they're a little bit too delicate. So 16 gauge is the way to go. First thing we're going to do is, with our copper wire, we're going to flush cut the end of the wire. Always make sure that you put your finger over the end so you don't send a piece of wire flying. And if it's your first time, you might want to wear safety glasses as well, because wire can actually fly up and hit you in the eye. So I'm just going to keep my finger there, and you can see I kept my little piece of wire. All right, so I'm just working right from the spool right now. I usually do work from the spool when I'm doing these, but it's a lot easier if you are a beginner just to go ahead and cut a piece. So I'm just going to cut about 4 or 5 inches of wire off of my spool. First step, take your chain nose plier and bend this wire into a 90-degree angle, just like so. And grab that little bail shaping plier with the 3mm bail and roll this into a circle. Now, I kind of made just a little bit larger loop than I needed so that I could trim off just a little bit and then pull it in close. Like so, and close it up with my chain nose. Just like that. And see, I've got just a little bit wonky, so I'm just going to pull him back. I just try to make it as perfectly at the end of my piece as possible. It kind of looks like an eye pin. If you guys have ever seen an eye pin before, that's essentially what you want this to look like at the end of your wire. So then we're going to take this is our bench block, and our chasing hammer, and we're just going to flatten out that end. And this is why I like to use copper or sterling, because we're going to be doing a little hammering on our wire. So just for effect, I just kind of gave it a flattened look right there. And that always opens up your little ring, and so you're just going to put that bail shaping plier back in there and just roll that closed. Like so. And if it doesn't quite close, you can use your chain nose plier to help you out, because that does harden up the wire a little bit. So there, that is done. And now we essentially need to get the size of the ring. So what we're going to do is take this wrap and tap plier. And I know that I'm going to be making around a size 7 ring. So if you can look at this, this is a really neat plier right here. That's going to be a 13mm. This is a 15mm. And that usually works pretty well for a size 7. So I'm going to go right there, grab the little loop, and just wrap this around the wrap and tap to the other side. And then this is how you get the size exactly right. You're gonna pull it up your ring mandrel. You can see I'm just a little bit below the 7, which is perfect. So the reason I do that is because when I hammer this, it actually grows just a little bit, because when you hammer metal, it expands. So I'm gonna start at about a 6.5. And what I do here is I'm essentially kind of getting, once that's good, I can see where I want to grab to make the next little ring, because you want those 2 little rings that you make to overlap. So I know that I am the right size, and I'm going to be able to grasp this wire right here, right next to the edge of the first loop I made. So grabbing this here, like so, I'm just going to take my wire and bend it back into a 90-degree angle, just like so. Make sense? Essentially, all I'm about to do is make another loop that looks exactly like that on the other side. So flush cut this right here. Like I said, make it just a little bit bigger than you need, because as you roll it in, you can actually trim it a little bit. And the reason I do that is because it makes a prettier circle. Okay, you can flush cut it right at 3/8 of an inch, roll it into a loop, and leave it the way it is. I like mine to look a little bit more circular, so I make it a little bit too long, roll it in, trim it, and then finish rolling it. So I'm cutting about a 1/2 inch right there. I'll show you guys so you can see. I know a lot of you all are measurers. I am a abouter, you know, like it's approximately, sort of. So if you guys are measurers, you can see that I cut that right at about a 1/2 inch. And now you can see, since it's perfectly a 1/2 inch, you know why I always just kind of do it about, because I'm always right. No, I'm just good at visualizing those types of things. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is just take this piece, and just like before, you're gonna roll that in to that circle. And you can see it's just a little bit large, so I will trim it. You can just kind of open this up a little bit to get in where you need. So I'm just going to trim this just a little bit right there. Roll that into a complete circle, and then I'll just use my chain nose plier to make sure everything is looking good. And get that all flat. It's kind of important that you get this segment right here, because as you've been working with it, it'll kind of bend a little bit. It doesn't look very straight. So I'm just kind of straightening that up a little. And then, now you can do this a couple different ways. You can roll this all the way back out flat if you want to, and you can hammer this part, or you can bring this onto your ring mandrel, and you can hammer it right there, because I want to get that other end, that other loop, flattened out just like the first one, for effect, and then also kind of round out my ring a little bit, so you can kind of go around the outside. This will harden up your metal and also round it out really nicely. And then when you get to the top, just kind of hammer both of them together and pull that off. So this is what you should have at this point. Okay, so next step is to overlap these 2 pieces. So what I'm going to do is, whichever one looks a little bit higher, I'm just going to pull it up and over the other one, like so, and then use your chain nose plier to kind of squeeze everybody into place. So now when you look at this from the top, you should be looking straight down into the loop on top of the ring. It should actually look like just one loop. See how that works right there? Looks like one, but from the side, you can see that I have clearly 2 loops overlapping. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm just gonna spend just a little bit of time making sure that everything is nice and tight here and perfectly lined up. Great, just like that. Now, at this point, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our bead. So let's just pop that right there, leave him in place, and I'm just gonna cut a little bit of 26 gauge wire. You're gonna need about 4 inches of 26 gauge wire, maybe a little bit less. More is always more. And then just pick a bead. It's really fun because I've got some different colors here. I like to make them all different colors. It's a fun little multicolored look. Or you could do a stack of all the same colors. The ones I'm wearing right now, I have black spinel, peridot, and garnet. So think about that. You could do birthstone stack rings. So if you have 3 kids and say one's a September baby, you could do a sapphire or a blue bead to represent sapphire. If you have an amethyst or a February baby, you could use amethyst. And then if you have a December baby, you could use turquoise. And you could stack them all together. It'd look really pretty. I'm going to use this bright blue neon apatite because it looks really pretty with the copper. All right, so you're just going to string your bead onto that little 26 gauge piece of copper. And then pull this in. Now, I do not substitute different sizes of wire for this. You need the 26 gauge for the strength, but you also want the size. You don't want anything too big because you're going to try to pull this down into that little loop that you made and kind of hide the connection a little bit so it just looks like the bead is floating there. So I just have that kind of centered at the middle of my 26 gauge wire. I'm just going to split them open at the bottom. And then grab this piece and put these down through the loop. And I'm going to bring one piece to one side of the ring and the other piece to the other side. Just like so. So see how you kind of pull it down into that part right there. And it almost makes it look like it's bezeled. I mean, obviously, if you get up close to it, you'll be able to tell. But it's a cold connection. So when you're wearing them like this, the wire on the side just looks like a neat little detail. All right, so we're going to take this 26 gauge wire and we're going to pull it off to the side where the cuts are because I like to try to hide as much as possible that little opening. Give it a little squeeze here. Make sure it's as close as I can make it. Same thing with this one. There we go. Okay, so just wrap 3 times on one side of the bead here with your 26 gauge wire. 1, 2, and 3. And you can go 5 if you want to. That looks nice as well. And then I'm just going to go 3 on the other side. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just kind of, I usually use my nails just to push that up right there. Oh, it's cute. Oh, I love it. I love the neon apatite with the copper wire. It looks great. And the thing that's fun about using a bare copper wire like this is if you want to, you can actually oxidize these rings. And I'll show you the difference between oxidized and non-oxidized wire. I'm just trimming these off underneath the band, and then you're going to take your chain nose plier and press that wire in, and you can see I've kind of rolling the plier around my ring band just to make sure that's nice and snug up against there. And then final step, because you can see it's just a little bit wavy because I worked with it, and this will just harden it up a little bit and straighten it out. Just pop it onto your bench block and give it a little hammer to straighten up your wire. And yeah, that looks a lot better. Right like that. And then it could be added to your stack. I would rather add it to a stack of copper, so I'll just put it right there at the top. But that's basically how you do it. Now, if you're looking to get an oxidized look, you can see this is an oxidized copper ring that I made on this side, and then this is the shiny. So you see the difference between the wires. If you want to leave your copper wires shiny like that, copper does oxidize over time, so you can just hit it with like an acrylic sealer. You can find it in any hardware store. You can either do like a matte finish acrylic or you can do like a shiny acrylic. And same thing if you oxidize it. I dipped this in liver of sulfur, and I can see it's kind of changed colors even since I did it yesterday. If I wanted to keep it that color, just give it a quick spray with the acrylic sealer. And as long as you're not using like a diamond or a super expensive bead, you can just let it hit the bead as well. Or you can choose to seal it before you add your bead. Okay, so we finished our no solder stack rings. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Just want to go over some of the tools and supplies you need to make sure you have everything before you get started. First of all, we use some bail shaping pliers. This is my large wrap and tap plier that I use to form the ring. And this is my smaller bail shaping plier with a 3mm mandrel on it so that I can make those little loops that we use to bezel the stone. We also used a chain nose plier. This one out of the way so you don't get confused. Chain nose plier, which is going to be flat and smooth on the inside, just for making those bends and pushing everything together. And of course, our handy little flush cutter to cut the wire. I have got a bench block here and a chasing hammer that we use to kind of shape and form, as well as our ring mandrel that I use to size the ring. As far as supplies are concerned, I used a 16 gauge bare copper wire that we talked about you could oxidize, and a 26 gauge bare copper wire as well to attach the bead, and then just some cute little 3mm gemstones. I used the apatite, the neon apatite today. You can also use a ruby or a piece of turquoise or really any small 3mm bead that you love. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys would like to pick up some supplies like the ones I worked with today, check out the links down below. What other ring projects would you like to see us do? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And now that you know a little bit about making no solder stack rings, you can say, I made this.